What's going on there, folks? Good afternoon, good morning to some out here. It is the Earthmaster on this, it's that beautiful day of the week, right? Friday, end of the work week, January 28th, 2022, just before noon. It's about 11:45 p.m. or a.m. California time. And the latest quake out there on the globe is a 4.6 earthquake down around the Tonga area. Continued movement there overnight. Still watching this area. Of course, that volcanic activity there the week or so before. Kind of just waiting to see what happens in this area of the world. We did have a larger earthquake out here outside of Panama, a 6.1, originally coming in as a 6.2. That came in way earlier, about 3 o'clock my time this morning when I was sleeping. I was up about 2 o'clock watching some earthquake activity on the Petrolia station there in Northern California. I was watching quite a few earthquakes come into the Northern California region there. So we're going to check that out and see if they've been updated or not in the Northern California region. Not a whole lot. We got 5 earthquakes here being reported by the USGS here along the Northern California coastline and a couple offshore. But man, I tell you what, there's definitely more activity than what's being reported here in the Northern California area. Also did notice some movement here in the Covelo area. This is probably some of the activity that we're seeing on the localized seismograph stations there around the Petrolia area, including the Dinsmore station that I have pulled up on the live stream. Right outside of Covelo, here in the Coast Range, seeing a pretty good swarm of movement with quite a few 2s kicking up here and some 1s in there as well. But this is actually a pretty significant swarm for this area. It's just off of the Bartlett Springs fault system here. You can see that area. You see that area right there in the red line stretching all the way up here. It does extend into parts of, I believe this is Lake Pillsbury, and just north of the Clear Lake region. This area has seen a 5 point, it's been a couple years, but there was I think a 5.4, 5.7 that struck here, which kind of shook my house when I was awake. I felt it pretty nicely there around the Chico area when it struck, but hasn't been too much activity since then. This is kind of more or less on the northern end of the Bartlett Springs system. So kind of watching this area. Whenever we see swarming, 50-50 toss-up that it could be leading to something bigger in the area. So we'll watch that continuously here in Northern California. Outside the Lake Almanor area, seeing a little bit of earthquake activity. 1.4 just south of the lake. Northwest of the Greenville area. Oregon and Washington all look somewhat quiet today. Seeing a trail of movement up through Idaho and into Montana. Excuse me. But overall, I think the big picture is the West Coast in continued movement right now. A little bit of activity here around the Avenal area. A couple 2s kicking up here. We haven't seen any further movement overnight in the Bakersfield area, the Wheeler Ridge. That's seen that earthquake swarm kick up. There it is on the map. Let's go ahead and zoom in. Out here, just northwest of Wheeler Ridge. Seen quite a few 2s and even a 3 in that mix, but nothing overnight. Go ahead and bring the all magnitudes back on. There we go. So I still think activity is kind of heightened out here along the West Coast, Intermountain West regions, and the eastern part of the Sierra Nevada, all showing just sizable activity kicking up, although not as active as last night. And that could have something to do with the 6.1 that we've seen down here off the coast of Panama, possibly switching up the plate dynamics here and temporarily creating just a little relief up here along the west coast. Texas, though, ramped up overnight. A couple 3s in there and some 2s kicked up around the Guadalupe Peak area. Nothing really significant over on the eastern part of the country. Let's go ahead and check out the Panama quake. This originally came in as a 6.2 earthquake off the coast, so very limited on any type of damage. Of course, if this would be inland and more shallow, then we'd be looking at some damage potential. But 6.1 off in an area off the coast of Panama in the Pacific Plate area, this boundary here, where we see quite a bit of earthquake activity. As far as specific size goes, there's definitely some up there around the 5 to 6 range, possibly larger than the 6.0 threshold, but definitely very active when it comes to earthquake activity off the coast of Panama. Looks like it was felt by a couple folks out there. Not for sure where. Looks like pretty close to the coast here, but overall, pretty good distance away from the coast, limiting damage from that 6-pointer. Down here in the South America region, let me grab a sip of my coffee here. Every once in a while, that that virus that I had a week or so ago comes back. It's the weirdest thing. I fully regained my sense of smell and taste, but every once in a while I'll get this this weird feeling in my throat. It's pretty odd, and it's a little annoying to say the least. I don't have allergies, so definitely not allergies. Just some residual annoyance from that issue we had here in the house. Pretty bad. Movement along the Peru-Chile Trench there continued overnight. Looks like a couple 5s and a 4 kicked off. Some deeper movement just outside of Bolivia and the Chile region. Puerto Rico area also getting in on some activity yesterday and overnight. Looking at Haiti, though, this thing has calmed down as far as the swarming goes, at least according to the USGS for now in that region. The North Atlantic and South Atlantic Ocean, everywhere is quiet except for down here in the South Sandwich Trench, where we've seen this activity kick up last night. Looks like a little bit of activity into the day today as well with a 5-pointer. Majority of this movement pretty deep into the South Sandwich Trench, so that could be adding some more strain in this region for possible buildup in the near future for activity there at the surface level. In the Pacific, let's go ahead and check out the Tonga area, where activity continues around the Tonga region with some deep movement. Last night, this 4.8 came in 641 kilometers. That's pretty deep, folks, let me tell you. Some major deep movement, and with that type of activity, I expect to see some further movement here over the coming hours, including the day and the weekend, probably for some larger scale activity. As far as volcanic activity, it's kind of hard to say. We're still seeing some movement around the Tonga volcano. This was last night a 4.9, or yesterday a 4.9 around the Tonga volcano, definitely within the vicinity of the regional swarm that we've seen in this area after the explosive eruption there of the Tonga volcano. So you can see it, pretty sizable. I don't believe this is plate dynamics. This is definitely something volcanic, or if it is plate dynamics, it's leading to something further volcanic in this area. 4.6 is the latest within the last hour. This one's pretty deep into the Tonga Trench, 203 kilometers. Down along the New Zealand area, I was watching some 3s come in here to the EMSC model, which we'll go ahead and check out while we're on it, just to cover that area. We'll zoom in here to the Pacific Ocean. It'll take these guys a little while. I'm not for sure why it's so slow, but it is. Okay, there's the 3s that I'm kicking, that I was talking about kicking up there in the New Zealand area. Looks like to the west and just to the north of the region. Quite a few 3s kicking up here in that area of the world, and also quite a bit of movement. If you look here on the 3 map, there's quite a bit through the Middle America Trench that's continuing, and up and down the South America region. Continued activity through the Indonesia islands there, with quite a few 3s kicking up. Looks like 3.1, the latest there in the cluster of quakes. Philippine plate pretty quiet, and up through Japan quiet as well. I know it's kind of a smaller map. I really wish the USGS would issue some type of 3 activity in their international maps here. I just not for sure why they only throw the 4.0 threshold out there like that. So Indonesia movement definitely heightened today. Some scattered 4-pointers out here on the USGS map. Japan, relatively quiet. We've seen these 2 earthquakes yesterday, one last night in the region with that 66.6 kilometer depth. It's not good. Kurokamachaka Trench and the Japan Trench all pretty quiet. Let's check out the big island of Hawaii. Southeast flank looking pretty active. No unusual movement at the moment. A little bit of activity around the Kilauea volcano. And one up here around Mauna Loa. We're watching kind of a swarm of activity, pretty shallow earthquakes around the Mauna Loa area yesterday and the day before. But looks like things calming down temporarily in that region for right now. Let's go ahead and check out any Yellowstone activity here at the... why is that popping up? That's kind of weird. Oh, really? Huh. That's kind of odd. Certificate date invalid. So we'll come back to that and check that out here in a little bit. I've never had that issue there with the Yellowstone map. But most of the time this doesn't pop up on your browser unless you have unless there's something going on. It looks like their certificate date invalid. But we'll pass that for now. We'll check that out a little bit later, I suppose. Solar weather activity into onto the sun here. Kind of looks like we're seeing some sea flare threat kick up here in the last couple hours, and overnight here on the chart. 70% chance of C flare and 20% chance of an M flare. Looks like they've raised the X flare potential to a 5% as well from the sunspot activity. Activity continues in a growth phase with new flux emergence being observed, currently producing minor C flare threats. But this thing's starting to grow, looking pretty dynamic there from 2936. Go ahead and check it out up here. 2936 looking pretty massive there. This thing takes off pretty quickly. It's amazing how fast these things can grow and develop. 2936 once again there. Going to be facing the Earth side as it rotates here into the Earth view. See what we got for the geomagnetic forecast. Looks pretty low key for the moment, but those things can change pretty quickly when it comes to any solar flare activity and CME that may be produced. So definitely keep an eye on this region, that sunspot activity over the coming days. All right, folks, I'm going to jump off here. We'll be back a little bit later on this Friday evening here. Me and Missy Mimi's will. We'll have a complete update show. And in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy the day out here in California. We're, 60s and 70s, no rain in sight. That's not a good forecast for us whatsoever. It's just, I can only imagine the fire season this year. Not going to be a good deal. I think it's time to maybe bounce out of California and relocate somewhere else. But that's coming soon, very, very soon. All right, guys, we'll chat at you later. Enjoy your Friday. We'll catch you here for the Friday night show. Peace out, guys.